I know. You didn't want this video to come. Smitty, please don't tell me to avoid Kamara. I love drafting Kamara late as an RB1, a quiet RB1. Alvin Kamara, bad news live stream begins right now.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com studios, it's the Fantasy Football Show. Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Smitty is also live whenever news breaks.
Dude's 29 years old, turning 30. Ziggy, how old is Alvin Kamara?
Alvin Kamara is 29 years old and was born on July 25th, 1995.
July, his birthday is coming up here really soon. Alvin Kamara is about to be 30 years old. 30 years old as an RB is not something you want to count on any level. There are so many factors here to consider. The drop off in play, just visually, numbers wise, at the end of the year. So we're going to put a little down arrow and just suggest that his play visually dropped off. And I'll show you more in a minute on that. But also another red flag, and you know what I tell you, whenever there's multiple red flags, you run because you can't fix multiple red flags. There's too many things going on. Even one red flag, you have to be okay with the red flag. You're like, injury risk, I think you'll be all right. I'll go ahead and take the chance. I'll cuff him, whatever. There's a reason to be okay with one red flag, but even one red flag, you have to be able to justify it. Bad play, he looked bad. He's 30 years old this year. He enters the season at 30 years old, so the bad play is not something you can ignore because he's 30. Probably not returning to his elite form. That's what that's trying to tell you. Bad offense. I mean, this might be one of the worst teams in the entire National Football League. No quarterback. I don't believe in Shook. I don't believe in anything they got going on. Olave's one hit away from his career being over. This is an awful offense that will not live anywhere near the red zone. Touchdowns will be hard to come by. All of these things are going to be a concern for Alvin Kamara. Drop off in play, bad offense, and as we just mentioned, he's 30 years old. This has to do with this one, but they are essentially two different red flags because he could be 30, but finishing the year playing really well. He didn't. All of these things are, look at this board. Look at this board. Are you going to draft this man? Look at him. And even further to prove my point, let's even put him on the risk map. And let's plot him on here and see what we come up with. This helps us decide whether we believe or not believe in the player. It kind of like reminds us of what's important, or maybe makes us understand that he might have a little bit more time. But we look at the anti-risk. Anti-risk is basically the reverse of risk, right? If you're a 10 out of 10 in risk, the anti-risk 10 out of 10 would mean you have no risk. So to keep these numbers going in the right direction, we're dealing with anti-risk instead of risk. So is he a 10 out of 10 in anti-risk? Absolutely not. He's 30 years old. 30 years old makes it so he can't escape this red zone anyway. On top of the fact that he's taking a beating. I'm going to go ahead and say that Kamara is an anti-risk player of maybe 4. Maybe he's not 1 or 2 because he does seem to be healthy right now, but we're visually able to see him drop off, and being 30 will make it impossible for him to escape this, this 1 through 5 zone. We'll put him at 4. We'll try and be respectful. His situation is maybe a 3 or a 2. Now, maybe you could say Smitty, but he's the only thing going in New Orleans, so everything's going to go through him. Okay, well, bad situation. Maybe that makes him more of a 3 or a 4 versus a 1 or a 2, but it still is a horrible offense that will not live in the red zone, and matriculating the football down the field is a key component in putting a player in a good position to score. Game script could get out of hand and he doesn't run, but they could throw to him, but will they even be able to check down to him properly? With the quarterback carousel, will Shook even be good at checking down to him? Will Shook even be the quarterback for the majority of the year? We don't even know. This is one of the worst teams in the National Football League. And what happens to players that are on bad teams? They try and get extra yards. They try and do everything they can to carry the team on their back, and they get injured. You mix that uphill battle and concern with being 30, injury is almost a guarantee in my mind. So situation will put it at 4. Talent, I mean, his talent was once a 9 or a 10 out of 10, no doubt about it. But at his age, you got to think like he's more around a 7, 8 territory. I wouldn't even say he's in this unicorn zone for talent anymore because we saw the drop off. I'd even say I'm comfortable making it a 7 or even lower. But we'll be very, very, I don't know, safe with ranking the negatives here. Talent 7, situation 4, anti-risk 4. This guy isn't in any of the green territories. He's not in any of the unicorn zones whatsoever. So this kind of leads us to the last final point, ADP. Cost of entry. What really matters here is cost of entry, because if he is a practically free player, then all of this risk doesn't really matter. But when we scroll on down on the ADP list, we see Alvin Kamara 55 to 56 overall. What does 55 to 56 overall ADP look like in 2025? Well, let me read off some names of players that are going above Alvin Kamara, right above him. Kenneth Walker, Travis Hunter, RJ Harvey, Jalen Hurts. Those guys are all within like 2, 3, 4 spots of ADP value. Of course, they're going to go ahead of him, as they should. Now, below him, Odunze, I can make an argument there on Odunze, but even further down, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow goes 62 overall in Underdog Best Ball. Use code Smitty and draft with us. We draft every single midnight, practically midnight Eastern on the channel. So hit that link in the description of the video. It's in the description of every video. So smash that darn link. Use code Smitty if you're doing it manually. You'll get 50% match on your first deposit all the way up to $1,000 bucks. But ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about a player in Alvin Kamara going 55, 56 overall. Joe Burrow's going 60. And in a non-best ball, maybe this drops down to 50. But it's the same territory as Kamara, essentially. And in best ball, wide receivers are going higher than running backs. So whatever discrepancy here is between best ball and non-best ball. So if Burrow's not a 60, but more of a 50 in non-best ball, well, then that means Kamara is more of a 50 as well, because wide receivers are valued a lot heavier in best ball. Another player I'd rather have than Alvin Kamara 10 times out of 10, Hendy. Hendo is right at 64 overall on Underdog, 64 overall. That is fantastic. Again, Kamara is 54 to 55. Hendy all day long. This one's a cakewalk. You know my answer here. 62 overall, Harvey. Again, I said Hunter. Hunter's around this territory as well. These are both smashes. Harvey, Hunter in the 55 to 62 territory all day long. Burrow, as I mentioned, all day long. I could argue a lot of other players too. I could argue Mahomes. I could argue Walker and Charbonnet would be better than just Kamara. I know the allure is there with Kamara. I know a lot of people want to love Kamara. I know it's easy to be like, hey, this is a big name that I can find in the 50s and it feels right, but it's not right. The odds of Kamara overcoming being 30, poor performance, which I haven't even pulled up yet. Let me throw his game log on screen. You can see at the top of this screen, 5 for 12, 2.4 a pop, 17 for 44, 2.6 a pop. He did have 23 for 112 at 4.9. There is the receiving work that he continued to get, even in doing well, even the last game, 58 receiving yards for a touchdown. But at the end of the day, there is a drop off in his play from about that Atlanta Falcons game all the way through Cleveland, Rams, New York, and Washington, where, you know, at the beginning of the season, if you go to the very bottom, you can see he's averaging 5.5 a carry, 5.8. The main thing I'm going to say here is that even if, let's say, I'm wrong about the drop off being his fault last year, he's 30 years old this year. So even if you could give me exact data that says, look, Smitty, it wasn't his fault last year. It's the offensive line, his play calling. It doesn't matter. We're still entering a year where he's likely to decline in production, in efficiency at the age of 30 years old. So last year almost doesn't even matter to me. The fact that he dropped off a little and wasn't looking as good. I mean, visually you could see it, even if you don't want to look at the data and say, oh, but what about the receiving? The 5 for 58, a touchdown in his last game. That accounts for him not rushing well. Or the game prior, he still had 35 receiving yards on 5 catches, even though he's averaging 2.6 a carry and had 17 carries against the Giants, by the way. I get that might not mean anything to you, and that's fine. I'm telling you, at 30 years old, the odds of him staying healthy in a bad offense is going to be in horrible situations and not living near the red zone with no good quarterback play. The odds of Kamara returning your 50 overall value, instead of going Burrow, instead of going Harvey, instead of going Henderson, maybe even Quinshawn Judkins would be a better option. And his ADP is a lot later, but maybe you swing around and grab Travis Hunter. Give me Travis Hunter, Harvey, Hendy, 5-6 guys, quarterbacks. Give me all of those guys over Kamara every single time. Sometimes it's not about hating the player. It's just loving other players better around the ADP. Don't forget my Patreon. It is a 24/7 live chat group. The link's in the description of the video. I will see you all on the next show. Don't forget, I'm live Mondays through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, every single Monday through Friday, rain or shine. I'm additionally live whenever big news breaks, and I'm additionally live almost every single midnight Eastern. Graveyard show, after dark show, draft show. Do it live. Deuce.